At Choir and Organ magazine, we believe it's important to promote the creation of new repertoire. We do this through features, supplements, competitions, workshops, and through our new music initiative, commissioning young composers such as Sean Doherty, whose recent piece for mixed choir speaks very much to our present situation.
I'm Sean Doherty, one of the composers featured in Choir and Organ magazine's new music series 2020. It was at the start of the first lockdown that Graham Ross, the conductor of Clare College Choir, asked me to contribute to the series. It was a bleak time in all of our lives, filled with fear, alarm and distress. The medieval text, Stella Caeli Extra Pavit, really spoke to me during this awful time because it's a plea for deliverance from another pandemic, from the Black Death. At the time of the Black Death, the best medical thinking, equivalent to our World Health Organization, thought that the disease was caused by the ill-omened configuration of the stars. And this text, Stella Caeli Extra Pavit, calls on the Virgin Mary in her role as the star of the sea to restrain the constellations that cause the ulcers of a terrible death. Though scientific understanding has advanced over the centuries, it's with the same urgency and anguish that we call for deliverance from this new disease of COVID-19 in the words, Audi nos, hear us, salva nos, save us.
Choir and Organ launched its new music series in 2006 with twin aims. The first was to encourage young composers to write for choirs and for the organ as a solo instrument. The second was to encourage choirs and organists to explore new repertoire by up-and-coming composers. Some composers, if they're not organists themselves, tend to fight shy of writing for the instrument. Carenza Briggs, who herself is not an organist, nevertheless thinks that they're missing a rather exciting opportunity.
So I was really happy to be asked to contribute a piece for Choir and Organ magazine early in 2019, and I wrote a piece for solo organ called Light in Darkness. And for anybody who's not written for the instrument before, it might seem a little bit intimidating with all of the different stops and manuals, etc. But I would just really recommend giving it a go because there are just so many different possibilities for amazing sounds and different combinations of cool sounds as well.
When new music first started, Choir and Organ would commission each piece individually and then organise a high-profile premiere. But since 2010, We have been working in year-long partnerships with other groups, sometimes at a university, like St John's College, Cambridge and Clare College, Cambridge, Merton College, Oxford, Royal Holloway, University of London, and the University of St Andrews. Sometimes we've worked with a cathedral or a large church, Salisbury Cathedral, St Paul's Cathedral in London, and St Thomas Fifth Avenue in New York City. And sometimes we have worked with an independent choir. We've had 2 partnerships now with the BBC Singers. This way of working gives the composer a much more realistic experience of writing music, and the interaction also helps to encourage a mutual learning.
Here at St John's, Cambridge, we were delighted to be the first new music partners for Choir and Organ magazine all the way back in 2010. It was an exciting year for us. I think it's terribly important for me and my colleagues to be always renewing the repertoire, as our predecessors have done for many hundreds of years. And I greatly enjoy commissioning music both from distinguished, established composers and also from young composers at the beginning of their careers. I think it's a great experience for me and for all members of the choir to work with composers. We learn so much from hearing about their insights, why they made the compositional decisions that they did. And the composers in turn, well, I hope that they learn a lot from the process as well. It's one thing sitting at home in your living room, writing notes onto a piece of manuscript paper. It's quite another actually hearing them in real life. The composers can learn what sounds the same as they imagined it in their heads, what sounds different, what's harder than they imagined, what's easier, and so forth. And it's great for us to be able to discuss, for us and the singers and the organists to be able to discuss with the composers details of the composition. So I'm delighted that Choir and Organ have these partnerships, and I'm looking forward to hearing the results of the 2021 partnership with the National Youth Choirs.
So, how does it work? First, our partners decide what sort of repertoire they would like and for what forces. Composers are then chosen jointly, and Choir and Organ formally commissions. Then it's up to the composer to write the piece. They may do this in consultation with the director of music, who can advise what works well and perhaps in some cases what might work better. It's important that the director of music is happy with the finished product, because after all, they are the ones who are going to be giving the premiere. Once a piece is finalised, our new music editor, originally Shirley Ratcliffe and now Matthew Power, interviews the young composer for the magazine. While this is happening, the partners schedule in a world premiere. Meanwhile, a PDF of the score is placed on the new music page of the Choir and Organ website. This is available to download free of charge for 6 months, enabling choirs and organists to explore the music without having to make an initial financial outlay. After 6 months, the copyright reverts to the composer.
I was thrilled to receive the new music commission, and I was thrilled to work with Rupert and his amazing singers. I really enjoy writing to commission because it gives me concrete ideas, and the defined parameters sort of help me to free up my creativity. So now, since the Royal Holloway Commission, I've worked on other commissions as well for ensembles like the Worcester Symphony Orchestra, for the Wells Cathedral Choir, the Choir of Trinity College, Cambridge, and others. And for me, composing is about communication and expression. And I see music as a very human experience that goes far beyond words. I think my music tries to explore different layers of mystery and meaning, and I try to reflect as much as I can different elements of the human experience. And so for me, Any opportunity, any chance that I have to share my music with others is a real joy. It's a real gift.
Our young musicians have continued to make their way in the world, often by combining their composing with other work. Teaching, such as Phil Cook at the University of Aberdeen and Edward Nesbitt at King's College London. Writing for stage, film and TV, such as James Lovino, Ben Woodgates and Edmund Jolliffe. Directing music in churches and cathedrals, such as James Davy at Chelmsford Cathedral. Taking leading positions in higher education, such as John Habron, Head of Music Education at the Royal Northern College of Music, and Graham Ross and Gareth Wilson, Directors of Music at Clare College and Girton College, Cambridge. Some are high-profile names in the world of performing, such as James Weeks, Hilary Campbell and Owen Park, founder-directors of professional chamber choirs Exaudi, Blossom Street and the Gesualdo Six. And some have made their way principally through composing, such as Basil Athanasiadis, David Loxley Blount and Anna Matthews. Hannah Kendall has now had several works performed at the BBC Proms. Some have won British Composer Awards, Elizabeth Winters in 2009 and Matthew Martin in 2013. And some have been taken on by publishers, like David Bednall with Oxford University Press and Alexander Campkin with Peters Edition. But like all practicing musicians, our composers tend to mix and match their work according to their skills and opportunities.
I was delighted to receive a commission from Choir and Organ for their new music series, as it was an opportunity to work closely with the St Salvator's Chapel Choir. I've worked with this choir before and am familiar with their capabilities and strengths, particularly in the area of dense polyphonic textures. And it was this aspect of their singing that I wanted to really push and to challenge. I think the choir will certainly agree that I managed to achieve this challenge in my piece Asphyxiate. For me, composing is about collaborating with other musicians to create a story, a narrative, a drama to share with your audience. And as a Christian, a lot of the stories that I choose to set are taken from the Bible. Asphyxiate sets the moment where Mary sees the risen Christ in the garden for the first time, as I find this one of the most poignant and hopeful moments in Scripture. Since the new music series commission, I've been working on several exciting projects. I'll be releasing my first portrait CD sometime next year, as well as featuring on 2 forthcoming CDs from the Crash Ensemble and violist Laura Sinnerton. I've also been involved with the LSO Sound Hub scheme this past year, and in February 2021 we'll be premiering a new commission of mine in which I feature performing on the electric guitar, and I'm really excited for that.
Now, as we head towards 2021, we look forward to working with our new partners, the National Youth Choirs of Great Britain. They have earned an international reputation through excellent performing standards, innovative programming, and effective outreach in encouraging so many young people today to take part in choral singing.
I've been with the National Youth Choirs of Great Britain for 8 years, and during that time it's grown into an amazing organisation that offers unparalleled opportunities for young singers across our country to engage with some really amazing and startling opportunities in choral singing. It's really important for us, particularly at this time in 2020 with global pandemics and Black Lives Matter, to ensure that our organisation is as accessible and inclusive as it possibly can be. The Young Composers Scheme is actually only in its second year. I started that as a composer myself last year, as I always thought it would be an amazing idea to offer young composers that chance not only to write choral music, but to be able to discuss it with the singers and conductors and work with each other, not only with each other, the composers, but with the fellowship as well, who are this amazing group of young singers, just 8 of them that they've been working with this year. And so the Young Composers Scheme was born. We're now into our second year, and this year we've recruited a wonderful bunch of new recruits. Despite the global pandemic, have been miraculously productive during this time and have not only written for the fellowship, but have also written for our chamber choir. And in fact, we're speaking to you here from Snape Maltings, where we've just done the most amazing live concert with 4 world premieres. I'm particularly delighted that Choir and Organ got in touch with us with the possibility of doing a collaboration together, which we've obviously agreed to, because again, it's another wonderful opportunity for young composers to find that opportunity to upskill and become better composers, the understanding of how to write for singers and for organ as well. And so we have our first recruit, one of our young composers, Amy Bryce, who joins me today. So Amy, just a little bit about the piece that you've written. I think it's called I Will Tell Them, isn't it?
Yes.
What is it about the piece that you were really interested in putting together, and why you've written it for boys choir and so on?
So I was really interested in writing for boys choir and youth voices. The pieces, I Will Tell Them, is about climate change. And quite often the new generation, the upcoming generation, the one that climate change is going to affect the most, don't have a voice, don't have a say until it's much too late. And we've seen the uprising of Greta Thunberg and these voices that are far too young to be taking control of what's going on, coming out and saying, you know, like we need to get a handling on this. And it's a similar thing that this piece is saying. It's inviting the audience, who are the large majority of them are going to be older than the people singing, getting them to reflect on how they're dealing with the global situation at the moment, and thinking about what they're giving the younger generation that they will in turn feed back to our future generations to come. What will our children say about how we're dealing with this crisis at the moment?
Fantastic. And it's a very theatrical piece, isn't it? Because that's where your
Yes.
interest lies. So just very briefly, just tell us about particularly the ending of the piece that we recorded.
Yes, so it starts off with a lulling folk melody, and really utilising the beautiful soaring youth choir voice, and then it changes about halfway through the piece and becomes a political protest march, if you will. And I've not, it's not explicitly written in the score, but I've given instructions for the opportunity to have a more theatrical approach with the piece. There are ideas for staging and the ability.
There's body percussion as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's all sorts. So hopefully it will become an immersive experience for the audience as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. And we are, of course, delighted that all four of you are going to be involved in this wonderful commission from Choir and Organ. So we thank them, and thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Since new music was launched 14 years ago, Choir and Organ has featured 87 young composers. They have enriched the magazine and also the musical lives of our readers. So we say a huge thank you to them, and we wish them and all our future young composers every success in the world of music.
We